The title of today's story is The Story of Alcestis and Admetus. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff.
My name is Roger, and today we're going to continue talking about our story from Greek mythology, and it's the story of Alcestis and Admetus. Now, remember, Alcestis is the compassionate and kind princess, and Admetus is the kind and generous king, who is a young king of a neighboring kingdom or something like that. And so basically it's a love story. Admetus falls in love with Alcestis, and he wants to marry her, but Alcestis's father has some strict conditions there. He's very demanding, and remember earlier Admetus had helped out Apollo when he was disguised as a beggar, so he got Apollo's help, and in the end, Admetus and Alcestis were happily married.
There you go. With the help of Apollo, they got married. That is what happened during the first portion of our story. Let's go ahead and get started on the second portion of our lesson. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back.
Many came to the wedding bearing gifts, but the most valuable was the promise brought by Apollo himself. Should Admetus ever fall gravely ill, he could be made well again, if someone offered to die in his place. Years passed, and while the love between Admetus and Alcestis deepened, the once young king eventually became critically ill with no chance of recovery. Some of Admetus's loved ones recalled Apollo's gift and began searching for someone willing to die for him. They asked family and friends, but even Admetus's parents valued life so much that they wouldn't give it up to save him.
各位好，第一部分我们看到副词 gravely 指严重的、沉重的。例如 Pat's arm was gravely injured, so we took him to the hospital. Pat 的手臂伤势严重，所以我们带他去医院。另外，这个字去掉字尾 ly 就成了名词 grave 指坟墓、墓穴，像是 to the grave 就表示到死时。举例来说 Ronald took his secret to the grave. Ronald 至死守着他的秘密。
Okay, so in the first part of our lesson for today, we've got lots of wedding guests, and many of them came to the wedding bearing gifts. They brought gifts, and they were going to give the gifts or the presents to the newly-wedded couple, but the most valuable was the promise brought by Apollo himself. So Apollo brought a gift, but it wasn't actually a thing like a toaster or a lawnmower or something like that. He actually brought some kind of promise. Okay, I'm going to do this for you later on in your marriage. And here's the promise that Apollo made. Should Admetus ever fall gravely ill, he could be made well again if someone offered to die in his place. So that's Apollo's gift here. It's kind of a promise here. If or should Admetus ever get really, really sick, then he can become well again if someone is willing to sacrifice their life for him. Now, here we've got the word gravely, which just means really ill, seriously ill.
Gravely ill. You could die. They could put you in a grave. You're just that sick. You are on the brink of death, the verge of death. But, hey, what Apollo says here is, Admetus, I've got good news for you, pal. If anything like that happens to you, if you get gravely ill, I've got you covered. But this is a Greek myth, so there's always a condition. You got to figure out who's going to take your place. Now, Admetus, remember, he's a nice guy. He's kind. How is he ever going to actually do this? He doesn't want to kill anyone. He doesn't want anyone to die or die in his place. So here's that catch. Greek myths are known for having these kinds of conditions and catches in them. We'll see how this all works out. Anyways, years passed, and while the love between Admetus and Alcestis deepened, The once young king eventually became critically ill with no chance of recovery, i.e., he was gravely ill. By the way, recovery, that comes from the verb recover. If you recover, you get better, okay? Let's say you break your leg and then it heals, okay? You have recovered. Let's say you get the flu and then you get better. You have recovered. Here it says, though, he is critically ill. So, what to do in this situation? Do you save your own skin, or do you have someone take your place? And if you do that, that's not a very nice and generous thing to do.
Exactly. So you probably need to find somebody who's about to die anyway, and that's probably why he eventually asks his elderly parents, which I suppose is not a nice thing to do, but gee, Mom and Dad, you guys aren't really going to live that much longer. Can you, die for me so I can recover here? Of course, later on we find out that his parents are not willing to do that, so some of Admetus's loved ones recalled Apollo's gift and began searching for someone willing to die for him. Your loved ones, of course, are basically the people in your family, the people who love you, your parents, your siblings, etc., your children, your grandparents. And they started to look around. Who can we find to die for him, to die in his place, so Admetus can keep on living?
There you go. They asked family and friends, but even Admetus's parents valued life so much that they wouldn't give it up to save him. No one is willing to die for him. How interesting. Wait a minute, though. Alcestis. I wonder if she loves him enough to give up her life for him. That's the kind of thing that happens in one of these Greek tragedies, and then Apollo shows up again and says, I saw how pure your love was just then when you decided to give up your life for your lover, so I'll grant you both eternal life, or something like that. I don't know for sure, but something is going to happen. There is going to be a twist. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a short break, but when we come back, we'll start reading from the second portion of this part of our story.
On hearing this, Alcestis left Admetus's side to retire to her chambers, where she lay down and closed her eyes. Suddenly, the king's health began to rapidly improve, and when he began to comprehend what was happening, he rushed to Alcestis's room only to find her cold body. He wept bitterly, and as he did, the color slowly returned to Alcestis's cheeks.
第二部分我们看到单字 comprehend 这个字是动词，指理解、领悟。例如 I am having trouble comprehending the meaning of this poem. 我很难理解这首诗的意思。另外，补充这个字的名词 comprehension C-O-M-P-R-E-H-E-N-S-I-O-N comprehension 指理解、理解力。我们可以说 This exam will test your comprehension of what we learned in class. 这场考试会测验你对这堂课所学的理解有多少。再补充一个相关单字 comprehensive C-O-M-P-R-E-H-E-N-S-I-V-E comprehensive 这个字是形容词，指全面的、详尽的。举例来说 The class's final exam will be comprehensive. 这门课的期末考会考全部范围。或是 Whenever Bridget travels abroad, she brings a comprehensive guidebook with her. Bridget 每次出国旅行都会随身带一本详尽的旅游指南。再来，我们看到片语 only to 加动词，表示结果却点点点，不料竟然点点点。举例来说 Ted got on the bus only to realize that it was the wrong one. Ted 上了公车，结果却发现他搭错车了。或是 Phil caught the ball only to drop it a moment later. Phil 接到了那颗球，不料却一下子就掉了。另外补充一个相关片语 only to be expected 表示某事可能发生，相当正常。像是 Robert's hair was starting to go gray, but at 46, that was only to be expected. Robert 的头发开始变白了，不过他46岁，那也是正常的事。
Okay, so remember where we left off. Admetus is in trouble. He's gravely ill and he's going to die. He won't be able to recover. So here he's got one chance, though. Someone has to be willing to die for him so then he can recover and keep on living. So remember, Alcestis is the wife of Admetus now because, they're married now. So on hearing this, or when she heard this, when she heard that someone had to die for him so he could keep on living, Alcestis left Admetus' side to retire to her chambers. And maybe she was so sad that her husband was going to die, so she couldn't face being seen by people in public, so she retired to her chambers. That does not mean that she quit her job and is now going to enjoy life in her 60s and 70s, going to the golf course or traveling the world and taking cruises and stuff like that. No, this just means that she went to rest, okay? She went to rest in her bedroom. In this particular story, the chamber or her chambers is kind of the private rooms that she has to herself.
She retired to her chambers and she lay down and she closed her eyes. Now, suddenly, the king's health began to rapidly improve. Admetus started feeling better and he began to understand what was happening. He began to comprehend what was happening. So he rushed to Alcestis' room only to find her cold body. Oh no. Just like I predicted here, the only person willing to give up her life for Admetus was Alcestis. Oh my goodness, what love they share. Anyways, it says here that he rushed to Alcestis' room only to find her cold body. So, dun dun dun, there's the surprise. Yeah, Alcestis, her body is now cold. That means she has died.
Yep, so he got better and then he was suspicious. Uh-oh, did she do what I think she just did? And he wept bitterly. He cried. And as he did, as he was crying, the color slowly returned to Alcestis' cheeks. So that's interesting. Lots of people are about to die, then they get better, and then somebody else actually dies and then comes back to life. So I guess in this particular case, things turned out nice in the end. It had a happy ending here because I guess she was coming back to life here for some reason.
Yeah, I kind of thought that this was going to happen, but I thought it was going to be the god Apollo that was behind the whole thing. Turns out that it wasn't. We'll actually learn more about that right after a short break. And yes, after that short break, we will be wrapping up our story on Alcestis and Admetus.
According to one version of the story, Alcestis later explained that in the underworld she had met the goddess Persephone, who had been so moved by Alcestis' sacrifice that she sent her back to the land of the living. The couple spent their remaining years happily together, grateful for the help of the gods.
第三部分我们看到单字 version 这个字是名词，指版本、说法。例如 In the latest version of this video game, many problems that the earlier one had have been resolved. 在这个最新版本的电玩，许多旧版本有的问题已经被修复了。或是 Sam's version of the story of their breakup is nothing like Amy's. Sam 说的分手缘由和 Amy 的版本大相径庭。最后我们看到名词 sacrifice 意思是牺牲，像是 Mothers make a lot of sacrifices to give their children good lives. 母亲为了让他们小孩有好的生活而做出很多牺牲。另外这个字也可以当动词，举例来说Fiona sacrificed her free time to help Hector study. Fiona 牺牲空闲时间教 Hector 念书。
Okay, now we're going to talk about the next part of our lesson, the third and final part of our lesson for today. And we should mention that a lot of times these stories from Greek or Roman mythology have different versions, okay, because they have different sources for these stories. So here it says, according to one version of the story, Alcestis later explained that in the underworld, she had met the goddess Persephone, who had been so moved by Alcestis's sacrifice that she sent her back to the land of the living. So that's one version of the story. Basically, she met Persephone in the underworld, and Persephone thought, Alcestis's sacrifice was really something. It was really amazing. So I tell you what, I'll send you back to the world of the living. I think there was another version of the story where somebody else went down to actually rescue her. I think it was Hercules or something like that, but that is another version of the story. But we're going to talk about this version here. It just sounds so much more fun because we can mention the goddess Persephone.
It says here, yes, that Persephone was moved by Alcestis's sacrifice. By the way, if you sacrifice something, you give something up, okay? You have something, you might need that thing, it might be valuable for you or something like that, but you give it up to someone else who might be in need, let's say. That's usually what it means to sacrifice something. Now, the thing that you actually give is called a sacrifice. And here, Alcestis gave her life for her lover. That was her sacrifice, and Persephone thought that this was a pretty cool thing to do, so she sent her back to the land of the living. That's why the cheeks there of Alcestis, they slowly returned to having color there. She was no longer a cold corpse. No, she came alive again. And Admetus was super happy to see his bride come back to life. Anyways, Alcestis, she went back to the land of the living, and the couple, Admetus and Alcestis, they spent the remaining years happily together, grateful for the help of the gods. There you go. They probably built a big shrine to the gods and said, thank you, Persephone. Thank you, Apollo. You guys are great. We're going to worship at this shrine until we die. We're just that grateful to you. We want to show you our undying appreciation.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Let's now listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始提到，许多人带着礼物来参加 Alcestis 和 Admetus 的婚礼，其中这个最珍贵的礼物就是阿波罗神亲自带来的承诺。文中写道， Should Admetus ever fall gravely ill, he could be made well again if someone offered to die in his place. 万一 Admetus 得重病，他可以完全恢复，完全康复，假如有人代替他死的话。好，文中是用到 in somebody's place 或是 in something's place， 可以用来表达取代、代替某人或某事物。那它其实也可以写作 in the place of somebody 或者是 in the place of something。 好，那另外我们要学习的是 should 在 if 子句当中的倒装用法。好， should 可以用在 if 子句里，那么句型是 if 主词 should 原形动词，那这是用来表示说未来某事发生的可能性或可能成真。那表达说万一怎么样怎么样的话，要是怎么样，如果怎么样怎么样的话。那这样的句型它隐含着对于发生的可能性保持强烈怀疑，但是不排除可能性的那种语义。而在比较正式的用法中，这个 if 主词 should 原形动词，我们常常会省略掉 if， 然后再把 should 移到主词前面，把它写作 should 主词加动词这样的用法。好，像文中的 Should Admetus ever fall gravely ill， 它就是来自 If Admetus should ever fall gravely ill. 好，那么再看主要子句的部分啊，我们其实可以用主词 will, can 或是 may 加原形动词，或者是主词 would, could 或是 might 加原形动词，或者是你也可以用祈使句来当主要子句。我们来造个例句。If you should need more information, please feel free to contact us. 如果您需要更多资讯，欢迎与我们联系。那这个句子其实你也可以写作 Should you need more information, please feel free to contact us. 好，那么故事写到说多年后 Admetus 生了一场不可能康复的病，那么家人就想起阿波罗的礼物，就开始寻找愿意为 Admetus 死的人。好，那么后来 Admetus 他突然开始迅速好转，他就开始理解到说发生了什么事，他开始懂了，应该就是跟 Alcestis 有关。好，课文用到一个单字是 comprehend， 它表示理解领悟的意思。我们来学习它的字首字根。好， P-R-E-H-E-N-D 这个部分的字根呢，它表示抓紧抓住。那么在拉丁文里面，它带有用心思用意志去捕捉的隐喻，所以就多半带有这种领悟啊理解的意思。那么在 comprehend 这个字当中，它的字首 C-O-M 表示完全， P-R-E-H-E-N-D 这个字根表示抓住。那么完全抓住应该可以理解说 comprehend 它就有理解领悟的意思。好，顺便补充一个有相同字根的单字是 apprehend， A-P-P-R-E-H-E-N-D。 好，但它的字首 A-P 是来自 A-D 表示朝向，那么后面这个字根 P-R-E-H-E-N-D 就表示抓住，朝向某个人把他抓住，应该很容易联想到 apprehend 它有逮捕的意思。那这个字是比较正式的用字，常常用来表达警方他可能要逮捕罪犯啊嫌疑犯等等。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Gravely. The news reporter thought the spider wasn't dangerous, but she was gravely mistaken. Recovery. After receiving the best treatment for his cancer, Jeff experienced a slow but steady recovery. Retire. Frank wasn't in the mood for conversation, so he retired to his room after the dinner party. Comprehend. The young child could read the novel, but it was difficult for her to comprehend its meaning. Sacrifice. The many sacrifices parents make for their children often go unnoticed. Grateful. After the stranger held the door open for Susie, she gave him a grateful smile.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. In your opinion, who is the most admirable character in the story?
Now, I know that this is going to start some debates, but I think that Alcestis' father was the most admirable character in this story because you know what? He wasn't going to let his daughter marry just any old schlub, okay? He only wanted the best for his daughter, so he had high standards. He asked for impossible things, but in the end, he did get the best possible mate for his daughter.
Well, to me, the most admirable character is definitely Alcestis because she actually sacrificed her life for her husband, which is very unusual. Most of the time, the man, the husband, is expected to sacrifice his life for the dear wife or the princess or whatever. So this is a really cool woman here. She actually was willing to give up her life for her husband. That's pretty cool. That's the kind of woman I want to have as my wife.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you guys enjoyed reading and learning along with us. I am Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.